Deity of Akorja, my name is Jessica or the Pink Witch, and I know I don't look like it because people never hesitate to say so, but I do witchy shit, and more importantly I do it well. So if you're interested in Irish spirituality, mythology, witchcraft, definitely subscribe so you do not miss a second of my ramblings whenever I do get around to posting them. And just before I get into the video, I do want to quickly address that I had actually started making YouTube videos last spring, but then summer came and I ended up changing my job twice, and then by the time I got settled into my new job it was almost Samhain, and as per Irish spirituality you're supposed to be resting between Samhain and Imbolg, and then it's Imbolg is when you go back out into the world and you start meeting people and doing things again for your community. So it didn't make any sense for me to be making videos coming up to winter, so it's like I'll just take winter to rest and we will come out of hibernation in Imbolg as the rest of nature is doing. So that's where we're at now, just in case you were wondering where I've been. And I did delete the older videos that I had posted because I don't resonate with the version of me that existed a year ago. Just Scorpio rising things. But anyway, let's get into this video about Imbolg. Now let's just talk quickly about my pronunciation of Imbolg, because you will all probably be way more familiar with Imbolc rather than Imbolg. The Old Irish spelling does use a C. Now I'm not an expert in Old Irish, I'm not even an expert in Modern Irish, but as far as I know, most C's in Old Irish would actually be pronounced as a G, not a C. But plenty of people do say Imbolc, so I don't really get too hung up on it. You know, it looks like a C, so pronounce it as a C if that's what you're used to, whatever. I just found, for me personally, like years ago, I would have tried to say Imbolc because that's what other witches on the internet were calling it, was Imbolc, but I'd always trip over it and I'd naturally be saying Imbolg. So when I did eventually figure out that, yeah, in Modern Irish it is pronounced Imbolg, that's why you're trying to say Imbolg, it made a lot more sense to me. So I do use the Modern Irish spellings and pronunciations for all of the festivals because that's what I know, that's what I've grown up with, and Irish has evolved. It's not Old Irish anymore, it is the modern day Irish, so why would I not use the present day spellings and pronunciations of it, you know? So Imbolg marks the arrival of spring, so that's really the main thing that you're celebrating with Imbolg, is the fact that the days are going to start to get a bit longer and brighter and warmer. The sun is coming out of a period where it's been almost non-existent really, and it just marks better days ahead more than anything. If you think about what you've just experienced in the last 3 months, it's been really dark, it's been really cold, especially because this is a Celtic spiritual practice. Look at how life would have been for the Celts at that point. So many of them would have actually died in the winter. That's why Samhain is such a huge festival, because they knew it was a lot of their last festival that they would have experienced, because the winter would have taken them. So yeah, when spring rolls around, it's such a revitalizing energy to just get you feel the sun on your face for the first time in a long time, and see that like nature is kind of coming out of hibernation. You see animals, you see babies being born. It's just such a beautiful, wonderful time, and you'll definitely be feeling much more into yourself. Especially, I think it's really, really common for a lot of spiritualists, especially witches, to have a touch of seasonal depression. God knows I do. So it is lovely when Imbolg comes around. It's just a breath of fresh air. You can't really understand Imbolg if you don't quite understand Brigid, because Brigid loans so much of her associations to Imbolg. It is obviously her festival at the end of the day. Brigid is the goddess of women, of the home, of domesticity, of like farm animals, cattle, chickens, like sheep, rabbits, that kind of stuff. She's more associated with wildlife rather than like pets, but you could definitely include that. I do consider her to have an association with all animals, but definitely more specifically wilder animals, but not like wild animals, if that makes sense. She is the goddess of the dawn, which makes perfect sense if you think about Imbolg, because dawn is to the day as spring is to the year. Brigid is usually presented in a triple aspected form as Brigid the healer, Brigid the poet, and Brigid the smith, which would have all been really, really important fields of work in a Celtic society. So she was really, really, really loved. She was the daughter of the Dagda, who is the good god, the father god of Irish spirituality. And she was actually loved so much that she survived through the Christianization of Ireland. So she does exist today in the form of Saint Brigid. And obviously there is debate of whether Saint Brigid was or was not actually a real person, or was she just a figurehead to replace the goddess Brigid. That's up for debate. I personally think she was probably a real person, and she's just been conflated with the goddess over time because it was a way that was acceptable for the people to still carry on their traditions by worshipping her or praying to her, just in the form of a saint rather than a goddess this time around. But yeah, that's where we come to Brigid's crosses. So most people would obviously associate crosses with Christianity, but the Brigid's cross is more than likely older than Christianity, or at least scholars have speculated. You do have various forms of the Brigid's cross. So the most common one would be the four-legged one, like the one on my necklace. That's the one that people would recognize instantly as being Brigid's cross. You do have a three-legged one, and you have different like variations of just other stuff with like more happening on it. So obviously you would make your Brigid's cross every single year on February 1st, which is Brigid's Day. And you'd have to go gather like the reeds for it, make your cross. It's the whole process of actually like going out into nature, getting it, gathering it yourself, coming home and making it in honor to the goddess. The point of the cross is to ask for protection for your home and happiness and everything inside of it. When it comes to what you should actually do with the cross, of course you're going to hear different things from different people. Some might tell you to hang it in your kitchen, some might tell you to hang it above your oven, some might tell you to hang it above your fireplace. Personally, what I would do is I would make one for my front door and one for my back door, and I'd hang one on either end of that. And then as the year goes by, that dries out. It's supposed to like suck in any negative energy or whatever and keep you protected and keep anything out of the home, protect you from fire as well specifically. And then you burn it on the following Brigid's Day. Another tradition that you can do is the tending to the flame on the eve of Brigid's Day. So this is probably something I will do this year. So you would, once the sun goes down on the 31st of January, you're supposed to light a fire. Or like while the sun is setting, really have the fire prepared, light it as the sun sets, and then you're supposed to tend to it for the entire evening until the sun rises the following morning. You do have to remember that for Celtic society, days actually started the evening before when the sun set, not when the sun rose in the morning. That's why you usually will find that the festivals are celebrated the eve of, not the actual day of, but then you might do something on both days. Like for Brigid's Day, I would probably tend the flame on the eve of it, but then I'd actually make the crosses on Brigid's Day. And now, that brings us to another point of the date. The 1st of February, the 1st of May, the 1st of August and the 31st of October are all fixed dates, when originally the festivals were not celebrated on fixed dates. So if you can't get anything, like if you don't have time on the 1st of February, or you're working or you're doing whatever, you can do it on a different day. It does not have to be that specific day. The actual like Imbolg ritual would have also been traditionally only ever performed by women. Men were like, they actually weren't allowed in the room when it was happening. Now I don't really agree with this. I do think there's certain things that we should abide by when it comes to spiritual traditions, and I do think there's some things that we can definitely update and modernize. I don't think your gender or sex or your genitalia should dictate what kind of spiritual like ritual that you do on a certain holiday. If you want to participate in Brigid's Day, if you want to do a ritual, you go do one, okay? It doesn't matter what you identify with or as. But it does make sense that the Imbolg ritual would have only ever been performed by women because it is a festival of women. You're also celebrating women. If you think about like the sun is being born, we'll say, at Imbolg. Well, not really. You could argue that it's being born at the winter solstice, but it's coming out at Imbolg. But Brigid is also a goddess of fertility and child labour, Jesus Christ, no, just labour, like giving birth. But totally makes sense then to see that like it's a women's holiday, it's to do with like, she's to do with birth, and then it's associated with like the birth of the sun. So you can see like where things are kind of like overlapping each other and where the associations come from. From a witchcraft perspective, if you have any like plans that you want to initiate this coming year, if you have some seeds that you have planted literally or like figuratively, and you want help nurturing them, Brigid and Imbolg are a great thing to go for, a god to go for, because she does obviously rule that like fertility and birthing something, but she's also really, really warm and compassionate and really just helpful. So she's a lovely, lovely goddess to go to for help with things like that. Did you do like more of a witchy like ritual rather than anything else, I'd absolutely make sure you're incorporating the 4 elements somehow. Yeah, as much as I really do believe in like keeping things authentic and like reading the mythology and reading like the like folklore and history of Irish people to understand what these festivals and holidays and gods and goddesses actually meant to the people of the time, but I do think it's also really important to ask, what do they mean now, today, in this present time? It's all well and good looking to the past, but as per Irish spiritual beliefs, the past does not actually exist, there is only now. And yeah, just get creative with it. Like, for me this year, I will probably do the Tending to the Flame on the eve of. I'm trying to actually source Brigid's crosses, reads for Brigid's crosses, because I live just outside the city and it's really fucking difficult to find any of them. But ideally I will get to make a cross on the first. I do actually also want to make a 3-legged cross as well, because the 3-legged cross is supposed to be specifically to protect animals, like your cattle and your sheep and whatever you have, like your farm animals. But my granddad has a load of chickens and ducks, and he actually has some animal like a fox or something breaking into his pen that has murdered a few of the chickens. I know, so sad. So I'm gonna try to make him a 3-legged one for that. And there's actually a Brigids festival happening in Dublin this year on February 1st, and I'm off, so I might make my way up to that. And I think that's something that is a modern way of celebrating Brigid's Day, is celebrating women. You know, like attending some like feminist panel, listening to a feminist podcast, reading a feminist book, you know, something like that, where you get to celebrate what women have done and like what we continue to do for the world. Irish witchcraft is incredibly big on like being an active member of your community. It's big on environmentalism, it's big on politics, and witchcraft in itself has always been a politicized identity. So you can't avoid politics if you want to be a witch. Like, it's just doesn't work like that. And there's a reason why in astrology the 9th house covers astrology, spirituality and politics. It does also overlap into the 10th and the 11th with politics, because there's different branches to it, but I have seen a lot of politics from the 9th house. But anyway, that's totally besides the point. So yeah, I actually gotta run, so we're gonna leave it there, but I hope you've gotten some ideas for at least putting a ritual together for yourself, sprinkling your home, spend time with family and friends, read something about feminism or the powerful women that are all around you in the world, or just spend some time in nature and look at the baby lambs, you know, just do something. Definitely always try to get outside when it comes to the fire festivals, because it is a nature-based practice. Ideally you should be outside for at least some form of your ritual. But even like the whole idea of going and picking reeds and then coming home and making a cross, you've been outside for that and you've interacted with nature. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that was informative to you somehow. I feel like I kind of just babbled, but whatever. And yeah, definitely like, comment and subscribe. I don't know if I'll ever not cringe having to say that, but hopefully we'll get over it, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.